are you going to have different pages to go to in your application? Full-blown pages. What do you guys think? Like in your apps for P3, what do you guys think? Are you gonna have different pages?
No, not in React.
Let's look at LinkedIn. That's why I have this up. If I click here, it's kind of a new page. It says, oh, here we go. This is what I mean. My network and feed. Do you see how that's a different URL? If that is the case, what do we use immediately in app? Yes. We immediately do the router code, okay? If we're not gonna have various pages, do we need to do router? No. If it's just like one screen with some fancy widgets and stuff like that, even like 2 screens, because we could just do an if-else statement, right? Because all the router is a big fancy if-else. That's all it is, okay? It's saying if something something feed, then go to this page, okay? All right, so now your question is, let's just put a route in here. Okay, so we have a route, and let's call this LinkedIn feed. So the route's feed, okay? Boom, boom, boom. So do you guys have this part down? We have, how many pages do you think I'll have right here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 pages. Do you guys see that?
Yep.
So there's maybe 8 routes in here. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go over here. This is the real, because that's the easy part. If you know you're doing multiple pages, this is easy, right? Well, kind of, but. Now, let's actually look at one of our pages. Okay, so now here's the real question. So now we're on /feed, okay? You guys help me out now. So I'm now on feed. I went to a route and it loaded a feed.js component. Tell me how to build this app with React, just like with the structure here. Let's say, if I'm looking at this page right here, how many components do you guys think I have?
A lot.
A lot. Okay, that's a good answer there. What I'm trying to prove with this demonstration thing here, let's just look at this one piece right here.
Sure.
Actually, I want to focus on the middle piece.
Sure.
So do you see how this start a post piece, let's call this make a post. So what I'm trying to tie in your minds is I have this feed.js file. It's almost like a brand new app.js.
Yeah.
We're kind of starting over right here.
Yeah.
And once we get in here, we're now kind of designing our whole feed routes, right? So over here we have write a post, okay? And that's gonna be a component. And then, do you see how I have to have like a wrapper to organize all these squares?
Yeah.
Let's make a couple more. What's another one? Recommendations. Recommendations. Spelling bee genius, okay? Okay, so do you guys see where I'm going with this or not?
Yeah.
What's this piece over here? Profile? Okay. So, do you guys follow me here? We're probably gonna have a wrapper.
Like a left wrapper, center wrapper.
Yeah, I mean, this could get in depth. We're doing a really basic version here, okay? So, do you see how these little components go in here? And really, this is on the feed.js page. And so I have each thing on this page is its own component. And look at this. This, what do they call this? Posts, okay? These are posts. Watch this, watch this. See these posts? How many posts are on the page? A lot, right? How are they rendering those posts?
Depending on how
Ta-da, huh?
I'll scroll.
Someone help me out here. Multiple items from dot, huh? Did someone say dot map? Yeah, I thought I heard it. Okay, so remember they have this post thing, and like wherever they're getting these posts from the database or so, wherever they're getting them from, they're doing dot map. Okay, and then let's just do like posts dot map And do you see how they render a whole bunch of posts like in this whole architecture here? You guys see what I'm saying? We did that with SpongeBob.
Yeah.
Just this piece right here. So that piece is right here in the mix of all this. Now, the final piece, we'll shut up on this. Here's the final piece. This looks pretty easy too, right? That's why remember I told you guys don't skip the design phase for these React apps? Because they'll bite you in the butt if you don't do this. Because you gotta get your component architecture down before you start coding, okay? So, what you do here is the last step. Let's think about that profile piece right here. Did everyone see that? Now the question is, how many components are into that guy? Let's pretend this is a new page. Now you're into profile.js, right? Now in here, what components do you guys see that I would have? Is it just one component maybe? What would you guys think? There's no right or wrong here either. So I want to build this piece right here. How many components do you think I should make? Or if not, just one? Who thinks it's just one? It looks pretty good. Okay. Who thinks we should break it up into, so this is kind of a header area, then this is kind of a data heavy area with a bunch of data, and then this is like a link area. I'm thinking possibly 3 different components.
Yeah.
Again, is it whatever, right? So the question is this, okay? Where then, that's where you guys' real question is, and mine too, it's all of our questions. So once we get this part down, finding the components, the real question is, okay, which ones of these have state, and which ones, where do we do all the state stuff? Now you guys hear me? So let's look at this one, okay? This start a post stuff, what I'm trying to tell you guys is, if you have a route, one option is to put a state object up here, make it a class, and feed data through all of these. Do you see how that could get really heavy on this type of big application? Constantly passing stuff down. And what if I went with the 3 component thing? And so now in profile, I have 3 other components, and now I'm 4 files down from this guy. You guys hear this? This is the real questions you're asking, right? So the answer is, we may have to try to teach you hooks. So I'm gonna tell you guys a story, but I don't want it to like scare you away from React, okay? The guy, Dan Abramov, I'm just gonna show you guys, this is important. What time is it? We're doing all right. This is a recent development, okay? I'm cutting edge. You guys are lucky. I'm like on top of this, okay? So I'm a React guy. I have to be on top of this. So presentational or container, I'm just going to tell you guys this theory, okay? This is like learning math and like learning like the first guy's theories, and then the next guy kind of improve that guy's theories. That's what we're doing now. So here's the answer to your guys' question. Before, when this is the current, this is still a trend. This whole thing right here, just like we talked about, has state, and you pass props down into all these guys and manipulate state right here, type of thing. For example, not mandatory. You might have a couple states in here, obviously, with the posts, and you know what I'm saying? Not set in stone. This is called a what? A container. And then the presentational, remember how we go through here, and look, for example, like the wrapper. See how it literally has no value by itself? It's waiting for what? Does this have any value or data, I should say, by itself?
No.
What does it have to have? Coming through the
Props.
That's called the presentational, meaning it's just waiting, it's a dummy. It's waiting for some props, and it will just render on the screen. Has no state, nothing. You guys losing me? So that's one strategy, okay? Right here, pass everything down. These guys are mostly dummies. But as you guys know, stuff evolves. This came out in 2015. And that was the go-to strategy. In fact, when I got my first job, I wasn't strictly following that, and my boss got mad at me, and he made me refactor some of my code. And guess what? I was pissed, and so was Dan Abramoff, my dog. Check this out. I've seen it enforced without any necessity, without almost dogmatic fervor far too many times, okay? So it turns out this whole idea of saying, your guys' question, should I make it a class or should I not? From now on, just stop asking that question and say, if it's a heavy component like this, you're probably gonna have multiple classes. If it's more simple, you can probably stick with one top level and pass a few down. I think that's a general good rule. And what happened is they came out with this thing called hooks, where you can bring state from this guy into here without passing it through props.
Yeah. Interrupt a second. So the article that I shared was actually written by Dan Abramoff. If you remember nothing else, remember Abramoff. That guy, everything he writes, the community just eats it up. He's also the author of Redux and one of the co-authors of Create React App. So what